From In the Beginning to the Musical Apocalypse, this is The Bible Says What. I'm your host, Mike Wiseman. A while back, I was on the show Unbelievable. I enjoyed the conversation, and I feel it went better than I expected it to. That being said, Veronica D. watched said Unbelievable episode and had this to say about it. Listening to you on Unbelievable, the straw man and fallacious points you make are embarrassing for an adult man. Thousands of Jewish and Christian theologians who have written on the Bible, and you really think that these people are stupid and you know better? Dude, really? You were never a Christian to begin with. All you did was go through the religious rituals. Thanks for contributing, though. You just cemented why I could never be an atheist. I could never be that willfully ignorant. Veronica sounds hurt and angry. This was not my intention. But nonetheless, Veronica D. starts her onslaught by appealing to biased authority figures. Who am I to question the work of the deeply devoted? They never fudge their numbers. Second, she turns to blind accusations. I hear it all the time. You were never a Christian. If it didn't work for me and Jesus never sent me convincing tingles, then the only other logical conclusion she could come up with is that I was never at her level of devotee. I would have loved to explore these opinions further, but unfortunately, the contact information left by Veronica D. was incorrect. If you're out there and listening, Veronica D., I invite you to come on the show and address your opinions. Message me. You know how. Let's start the show.
Is there anything in the Bible that you yourself have an issue with? Okay, so it took you reading the Bible to realize that those things were bad for you?
Yeah, it actually did. I
Couldn't
didn't
figure this out on your own?
No, Ted Bundy could be redeemed. God doesn't kill children.
What do you think the Passover was? Yahweh sets up a whole system in the Old Testament where you slaughter animals just so he's able to forgive you.
Today's special guest is spiritual life coach Grace Being. Welcome to the show, Grace.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the time. Why don't you tell us about the spiritual life coach? What do you do exactly? What is that?
Yeah, so I'm a spiritual life coach, but I focus mostly on people who suffered from narcissistic abuse. So they were stuck in toxic relationships. But my approach to healing is a mix of science and spirituality. So I had my own journey of healing from narcissistic abuse, which is what inspired me to embark on this journey and start helping others do the same, right? So basically, that's what I do.
Sorry, can you define narcissistic abuse for us?
Yeah, so narcissistic abuse is quite a common issue in the world, unfortunately, and many people are not aware of it until quite late in the relationship. And this can be happening like with a colleague at work, with a family member, or with a romantic partner. And so narcissistic abuse is when someone takes advantage of your vulnerability. They manipulate people to use them for their own advantage. They use specific techniques like gaslighting, which is a specific type of manipulation where the people end up questioning their reality and what they're experiencing because of the denial and the lies. And it's really, really confusing and painful for the other person. And the narcissists start off and seemingly they come off as like charismatic people. So it can be quite difficult to pick up on these traits. But as you get closer to these kinds of people, then you would realize that they're not really who they are. They've suffered their own trauma, okay? So I'm not trying to stigmatize them. However, it doesn't justify the abuse, right?
Right. Yeah. So thank you for that. So what was the typical advice you would give somebody who is in that kind of relationship?
To educate yourself as much as you can. That was the starting point for me, to educate myself about the personality disorder, to help me understand what's happening, what I was going through, help me realize that I was not going crazy, because victims might be suffering from cognitive dissonance, which is when you are presented with two conflicting beliefs simultaneously. So, our brain makes sense out of things by observing patterns in life. This is how we navigate our world.
Yeah.
And when you have two conflicting patterns, the brain gets confused. So you're like, what the heck is happening here?
It does not compute.
Yeah, exactly. So education and self-care.
Education and
Start from there.
self-care. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
That's a great start. Education and self-care.
Yeah.
Love it. Great advice. Oh man, that's it. That was the show. Thanks everybody for coming. So thank you for that. Where does the spiritual part fit into all that? Because that's great. I love that. I mean, self-care and education for sure. Man, that's a great one. Go ahead. Yeah. Where's the spiritual part fit in there?
Yeah. So the spiritual part really helps in the healing process, because when you're going through narcissistic abuse, you tend to lose yourself in the person, and you find yourself neglecting your needs, your emotions, and you become kind of fixated on fixing the relationship or saving the narcissist even. And this is emotionally exhausting and overwhelming, and it affects you spiritually as well. So you lose connection from yourself.
Okay, slow down right there. I like that. Thank you. We lose the spirit connection when we're in a relationship like that, when we're going through. So how does that work exactly?
So if you are entirely focused on another person who is harming you, your intuition would be trying to tell you, you have this feeling
in the back of your head, this is wrong. Yeah. Someone trying to tell you to get out of there. So you attribute that thought to the spirit part.
Yes.
Why?
Because because your higher self, let's call it your higher self.
Higher self.
Yeah, is what I like to call it. Everyone has a higher self.
Everyone has one.
Everyone has one. And it's like, it's trying to guide you, it's trying to protect you, and it's trying to warn you by using the inner voice. But so if you're losing touch and you're disconnecting from the self, then you're not paying attention.
Yeah. And you're in your Jiminy Cricket, your conscious, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, there is nudging at you, your little angel, your devil in your shoulder. There's many different ways to describe that for sure. Yeah. All right. So you've stuck with this is your higher self. How did we get to that as opposed to Jiminy Cricket? How do you know it's not Jiminy Cricket? I mean, the ghost of Jiminy Cricket could be, living in your head somewhere and telling you, don't do that. Don't do that. I failed with Pinocchio. I'm not going to fail with you.
It is exactly like Jiminy Cricket, right? It is our conscience.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, you are mentioning this. I like to work with dreams as well, not interpreting dreams to people, because I do not have that. I'm not trained in that aspect, but I've done psychotherapy myself, and Carl Jungian psychotherapy specifically, which has a profound spiritual aspect, Carl Jungian's theories. And part of the psychotherapy was interpreting dreams. And I had a dream about my Jiminy Cricket. So,
do you have a spirit animal? Is that what it is?
I don't have a spirit animal, but so our dreams, our unconscious tries to communicate with us through dreams and through symbols, and it's always trying to help us, to protect us. And your conscience can present itself as Jiminy Cricket, which in my case, it did actually present itself as Jiminy Cricket.
Oh, like for real? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
for real. Yeah.
What did Jiminy say? Did he say you're going to be on a show with Michael someday and he's going to mention me?
No, but Jiminy Cricket was trying to it was trying to show me right and wrong, right? Between right and wrong, and telling me like, you're going to be okay. Follow this little voice, which was Jiminy Cricket in the dream. And it's like this little voice in your head that's trying to poke you in the right direction, and you keep ignoring it. So going back to the spiritual connection, when we start doing spiritual practices, which can take form in many different ways, you strengthen this spiritual connection, and you're equipping yourself with ammo against the narcissistic abuse. So you're strengthening yourself even while you're still in the relationship. That's how it starts.
So we're going to start with the education and self-care. We're going to go back to that. If I'm educating and self-caring, that education is going to teach me how to deal with these emotions, deal with these relationships, deal with these kinds of situations.
Yeah.
Where does the spirit part fit in as a need at all? I see it's just my common sense is nudging at me, telling me, hey, you're not comfortable here. You're not happy. This is wrong. We should fix this.
Yeah.
So, and then that to you is the higher self, your Jiminy Cricket. And it's trying to help. That's what I'm getting.
Yes.
There's none of them that are going to be harmful, tell you the wrong thing.
That wouldn't be your conscience. That would be other intrusive thoughts that you might be having, which you would be having if you're in a narcissistic relationship. That's for sure. So having the spiritual connection with yourself teaches you how to identify and start recognizing these intrusive thoughts and the internal commentary that you have in your head, which you might not be aware of at the time.
Your own. See, how do we distinguish from our own thoughts to an outside force giving us those thoughts? How do we distinguish that?
Yeah, that's why it's really important to develop this spiritual connection, because otherwise it can be very confusing. So how do I know how do I know that the thought that I'm having that I'm not good enough is coming from external experiences and not because it's true?
External experiences, exactly. Yeah. Not an outside force, though, not an invisible consciousness that's somewhere else, your higher self or whatever. This is just, your environment. You're going to be, product of your environment, so they say.
Yes, you will surely be influenced by your environment.
And that's where that education and self-care comes in.
Yes. So education is going to help you identify even what you're going through, like the symptoms that you start developing and the abuse, and start making sense out of things. Educating yourself about boundaries, even like what boundaries are, how to practice setting boundaries. Like they don't teach you these types of things in school. At least not me in my school.
There's a lot of things they should teach you in school. They don't. Balancing a checkbook, buying a house, boundary, lots of things. So as far as self-care and education. So if I can do this without connecting to the spirit world or my higher self, if I can figure this out on my own, it takes years. I've been there. I've been in a crappy relationship. We've all been in crappy relationships. And when you're in them, there's always that little thing in the back of your head telling you. But again, it's my common sense telling me that I'm unhappy, that I shouldn't be here, and that I'm uncomfortable. And how do I verify that it's Jiminy Cricket as opposed to my own thoughts? Because I can't connect to spirit worlds like people claim to connect to spirit worlds. I don't have conversations with invisible people. I tried that. that nothing happened. You know, it was just a one-way conversation. And then my own thoughts are my own thoughts. There's zero way to verify that my thoughts are coming from an alien spaceship, a dead person, or Jiminy Cricket. You know, that's where I'm at in this whole thing.
Okay, so where do you think your thoughts are coming from? Let's start from there.
My brain. And my brain comes up with ideas, my subconscious throughout the day, throughout my life. Things have been, you know, I've been in situations and those things pop up in here and there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. So that's the brain's role, basically, part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am not a brain scientist, so.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm not either.
Great.
But that we know that that's part of the brain's role through science, actually.
We know what the
that
brain
it
does.
generates thousands.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it generates thoughts and ideas. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you ever tried meditation?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't sit still long enough. I have a problem. I'm just always...
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Plus the coffee's not helping either.
Try decaf.
Maybe.
So have you ever experienced moments where you were able to sit in complete stillness and your brain was not producing thoughts, even for just like 3 seconds, 2 seconds?
Okay, so that would be on the car ride home sometimes. You just zone out. Okay, I would call that my meditation moment. I don't even know how I got home sometimes. It's like, I don't even remember that drive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that meditation?
Yeah.
So when I'm in that state, no, oh no. Good, don't meditate while you're driving. Don't do it.
No, please. No. But that is a very good example of how you're operating. So you said that you don't even remember the drive home. So where were you exactly? Because you were in your body, you were driving, right?
Yeah. I was in my thoughts. I was lost in my thoughts. A lot of times that happens. I'll be listening to a podcast or a song or something, and then a thought will pop in, and my mind, being my mind, just takes it and goes down all kinds of millions of different rabbit holes. And that I would call my meditation.
Yeah. So that's not meditation, because you said that you were still lost in thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So you haven't experienced a moment where you were just sitting down doing nothing, so not driving, and your brain, you noticed that there was just complete silence.
I don't. My head never has silence. Even when I'm sleeping, I don't have silence in my head. I don't have that. I'm just, my brain works differently. That ADHD crap is just, you know.
Okay, you go fast.
I go fast all the time.
You go fast. Okay. So, let's try this, okay? So, can you close your eyes?
Close my eyes.
Yeah. Okay. I want you to take a deep breath. Just no cheating, no peeking. This will be quick, okay? Okay.
All right.
Yes, let's take a deep breath. In through the nose, down to your diaphragm, and you breathe out. Okay. We're going to take 2 more breaths at your own rhythm, but controlled. Okay. Now, as you take the next breath, I want you to focus on how it feels on your body using your senses. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can you tell me what you can you tell me what you're feeling in your body?
Anxiety.
Anxiety.
Yeah, no. Oh my God. I close my head and my eyes and my mind goes all kinds of places. I got work, I got kids' school, I got podcast. Okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I have a hard time silencing things. That was fun though. That was I didn't really feel, I mean, maybe I felt a little more relaxed because I stopped moving for a minute. But other than that, that was fun. I hope nobody was driving while they were doing that. Nobody was driving while they were doing that.
You would need more time to relax the mind, right? And go from different brain waves of the mind.
Maybe some medication.
But what I'm getting to is that to be able to realize what you were feeling,
Mm-hmm.
you were using your awareness, right?
I would attribute that to my brain, though. My brain's awareness, yes, of my body. Yeah.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that your awareness and being able to get in touch with what you're feeling and with your
Mm-hmm.
body,
Mm-hmm.
having that ability, that is your spiritual side of you, let's say.
Okay, so getting in touch
Your
with your body
awareness.
is the spiritual side.
Yes, definitely enhancing the
Why do
mind-body
we call that
connection
spiritual?
is a spiritual practice in itself because everything is connected. There's no body versus spirit. This is, at least this is how I work, okay? This is
Yeah.
my holistic approach towards life and towards healing. So the body, the mind, and our spiritual self,
Uh-huh.
awareness itself, they're all one system.
The mind, the body,
So,
one says yes.
and the spirit. Yeah,
Wow. Okay, I
because
can't get to the spirit part. I don't have that part yet, though. Like, that part is the part I don't get. What is it? Where does it come from? I don't recognize it. Even if I did that calm, quiet thing, I wouldn't recognize a spirit. I recognize my body, my brain, my thoughts, my breathing, the world of, I don't know. I how do you get to
yeah.
that spirit part, that little flavor, that little extra flavor you seem to have there? How do you get to that?
So, the key word of what you're saying is it's not you don't have it, you don't recognize it. And that's a big
Well,
difference.
well,
That's a big difference. Okay.
yeah.
If you didn't have the spirit, you wouldn't be here right now speaking with me.
Well, that's
Because
debatable.
it's what's giving you life. Now, how to get in touch with that, I understand where you're coming from,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
before I started my spiritual practices and my healing journey, I was a full-blown atheist, and I
Oh.
used to enjoy having debates with people and trying to convince them that they're wrong. Nothing else exists apart from the body and the planet Earth. Deal with it. Science, we're going to die, decompose, just deal with it. Okay.
And then what happened?
That's how. What?
Oh, then what happened? Like, did Jiminy, was it the dream from Jiminy Cricket that changed your mind? What was it?
No. What changed what changed my mind was actually meditation. So I started meditating not as a spiritual practice. I started meditating because I was in so much deep shit in my life. Excuse me for my French, but
That
I
sounded English to
didn't
me.
have.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, couldn't help myself.
I didn't have another way of like coping with what I was going through. So my sister introduced me to this person, and she was like, just go to him, he's going to help you. And I was like, what do you think he's going to do? And she was like, just go. And this was a person who I ended up working with for years. And the first thing that I told him when he was going to start speaking to me about healing and stuff like this, and I was like, don't speak to me about God. Don't speak to me about spirituality, because I do not believe in God and I do not believe in spirituality. And now I'm a spiritual life coach. So this is the kind of transformation that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Yeah, what happened? What was it? Was that lightning strike? Was a flick of the switch? What was it?
It was years of meditation, okay?
Years of meditation.
So
okay.
Yes, I started meditating and I enjoyed it because I started feeling some sense of relief from my anxiety and from the emotional exhaustion that I was experiencing.
Life. Yeah.
And abuse, domestic violence, like it's
sorry.
horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I used to smoke weed from morning till night. I was self-medicating myself.
Over self-medicating.
Over self-medicating. Like I had to be zoned out to be able to cope through life. Like I used to wake up and my heart used to start racing, like with anxiety. And I was like, what the heck is happening to me? You know, I just woke up. I'm not running or something.
Yeah.
So anyways, I continued this meditation because it's starting to help my body.
Yeah.
And it just started a graceful transformation within me without me even knowing, actually.
Hmm.
So I started having more clarity. I was still stuck in the relationship, but after
Hmm.
2 years of doing these kinds of like life skills, learning about what I like,
Hmm.
what gives me a
Education,
sense of
self-care.
purpose in life, education, self-care.
Yeah.
That's how it
Hmm.
starts. Yeah. And I start making better decisions, and realizing that, listen, life doesn't need to be so dull and
Hmm.
horrific. So I started to have a stronger sense of self.
Hmm.
My self-esteem is establishing itself. Self-worth, it still needs a lot of work. Still need it at the
Yeah,
time.
we all work on
Um,
that.
yeah, but I started changing, I started
Yeah.
transforming. And so that then I got in touch with my spiritual self, um by experiencing it myself, by knowing. So if someone had to come tell me what they were going through without me experiencing it, I
Hmm.
wouldn't have believed them,
Yeah.
because I'm the kind of person that I need to experience something
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
before I believe. It's a sense of knowing rather than
Absolutely.
learning it,
Yeah.
you know?
Experience for sure.
So yeah, that's how I realized that I have a spiritual self.
So what I'm seeing, thank you, is we're taking the time away from the craziness of the day, the craziness of the week, the month, the people around us, the children, the children, and we're taking a break from that. That's our meditation, right? We're just canceling out the world and focusing on us. That's of course that's
Yeah.
healthy and beneficial. Yeah. Like if I just zone out in front of the TV for an hour, that'd be great if I could do that. I'd be like, that would be me time, relax time. Like if I play a game, I play, anyways. If I play a game, it's relaxing. It mellows me out. I get to zone out of the world, focus on this, and if I do that enough, and I take those times for myself, self-care, 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to feel better. Yeah. And if I just keep going from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, that's gonna be a problem. Yeah. But again, I don't need the spirit part for any of that. That all just makes sense just naturally. So the question I think we're gonna end up with anyways is God. Where is God
Mm-hmm.
in all of this? But first, I want to describe God. What is God to you? Who is God to you? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a challenging question, dude, to explain and define what
Mm.
is God, because
Mm.
that is a question that is on my mind every day. Yeah. Um, so I can't really explain or define God, but I can tell you how I feel God's presence, if that's what it is,
Interesting.
and
So
how it changed my life. Yeah. Yeah,
well, I
please
mean,
ask. Yeah, tell me.
we feel that we understand. Or sorry, I understand that you feel that God changed your life, and so the problem I'm having is you don't know this guy. You don't. Do you talk to him? Have you seen him? I mean, is he the God of the Bible?
Um, I don't know. I don't
Hmm.
think that it's the God that we were taught when we were kids. I was brought up in a Catholic
Ah,
family, but as I
mm,
told you, when I was 18 years
yeah.
old, I was like, no, this does not make sense. No.
Yeah,
No.
right there with you.
Uh,
Communion,
yeah,
that's a good one.
and if you haven't experienced these kinds of things, I
Hmm.
don't blame you to go through life like this, because it's very difficult to understand, especially if you
Hmm.
haven't experienced them.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
do you understand though? Do you understand God? Do you understand what he is, who he
um,
is, where he is, what he tastes like?
I I wouldn't dare say that I understand God, because
Hmm.
I understand that I am too small to understand God. Because let me explain what God is for me.
Narcissistic
So,
abuse. You're not too small. He's too small. Don't you turn that around and
what?
make it the other way around. That sounds like narcissistic abuse. Get yourself out of that relationship. Good grief, Grace.
With God, you mean?
Yeah, he sounds narcissistic. You're too small. He's already got you telling yourself that you're too small, Grace. Don't let him tell you that. Be bigger than him.
Wait. No, I think that is having a sense of humility, but also understanding your power. So God, how I experienced God in my life is through meditation. So
when you're in a
once I was
meditating state, that's when God connects with you. Gotcha.
I didn't know it was God's presence, but I was at the beach, I was meditating by myself, and I had been doing so for like 2 years. And for the first time in my life, I feel like an explosion of like gratitude and love coming not from external sources, but from inside my body. And I start crying with joy. And I was like, what? And I woke up, I couldn't continue meditating. And I was like, like, what's happening? What is happening? You know,
you're filled with joy. It's the joy monster.
Joy.
He was just happened to be on that beach that day. That joy monster. He's so cool. Oh man. Well, I'm glad you got to experience the joy monster. Man, that's cool.
Yeah. And I did get curious about that. I tried researching about it, but I didn't find anything.
On the joy monster or the being that gave you the happiness?
Yeah, on what I was feeling. I couldn't
the one
find
you think.
anything.
So what did you think gave it to you at that point? Did you think it came from inside? Just pent up joy somewhere that just needed to come out, or a thought, or I mean, anything? Like, where do you think it, like, did God like jump on top of you, or did he come in your body and then like give you the joy, or did he telepathically send it, or lightning bolts, or how did you get it? How does that work?
Well, we are born with it, but we don't realize that it's there. So you have like a fraction of God's essence inside of you waiting to be found. So then you can feel a glimpse of what God feels like.
That's an interesting one. So I have a little piece of God in me. When did that get there?
You were born with it.
I was born with a little piece of God. So before I was born, God is sitting wherever he sits and giving little pieces of himself to all the babies.
Well, I don't know exactly where God is sitting or how this works,
or how
I
he's
can
sitting.
say, I can say how I experienced it, right?
You experienced feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I experience feelings all the time. I mean, sometimes they're overwhelming, but I don't think it's the joy monster.
Most of the time they're overwhelming.
Yeah,
but so you haven't experienced these kinds of feelings?
I've had lots of joy. I've had overwhelming joy. Yes, absolutely. Random joy. Holy cow. Random happiness. Yep. Been there. Random sadness. Been there. Yeah. No, I do. Everybody does. I mean, that's a human experience. That's part of the fun of being human. But I don't see that as an invisible force doing it to me. It's just me. It's my body. It's my brain. That's how I work. It's how I function. There's no slivers of God causing all of that, you know?
I don't think that it's the same kind of feeling, because I go about my life trying to connect with other human beings who had similar experiences. And I do not find many people who can understand this feeling. And I don't mock them or make them feel like anything less than me because they didn't experience it. But I would like to connect with more people who did, because I'm human and I like to share my experiences with people who can understand me.
Damn Skippy. Yeah, that's the way it works. Mm-hmm.
So fast forward to 2 years after I felt this feeling and I continue meditating. It was in the midst of the pandemic, and I had flown back home from Florida, where I was working because of the pandemic, and I was in quarantine for 14 days. And
everybody from Florida should be quarantined. Sorry, Florida listeners. Sorry. I didn't mean that. I swear.
Um, where are you, by the way? Which state?
I'm in Vegas, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Vegas.
Yeah.
Nice.
Eh,
Nice.
it's a
Cool.
little warm, but
Okay. Cool, cool, cool. So yes, I still wasn't into spirituality. I still didn't believe in God at the time. I just experienced this feeling and I was like, I don't know what it is, but I went on with my life, okay? Smoking weed, still toxic relationship,
All day.
whatever. Yeah. Yeah. And anyways, then I was in my apartment in quarantine. My weed was finished. I had like just come out of a week smoking weed all day, all night, and then I stopped. It was finished. I was like, oh, fuck it, I'm gonna continue. And I just started reading a book, which was sitting there in my closet for like a few years.
We've all got those.
And I decided to start reading this book. So I started reading this book, which is called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And I start having these moments of realization where you could say, like, I broke free from the matrix, is what people call it. And I had this like spiritual awakening where my body was filled with goosebumps and it couldn't stop. And I feel this like rush of energy from the back of my spine going up to my body. And I know this sounds crazy. I was scared and shy, and I didn't want to tell anyone about this because people would think I'm crazy, right? So it took me a few years to be able to feel safe and come out of the spiritual closet. And after a lot of reading and understanding and forming now my belief system, it took me a lot to feel comfortable sharing this. So I did other podcasts before where I didn't speak about this experience. And now I'm comfortable speaking with you because I've done the inner work, right?
Yeah. So you've done this before. Yeah, you've been there, done that. You're an expert now. So how do you know that that was not the joy monster sending you that stuff up your spine and your tingles and your goosebumps? How do you know it was not the joy monster? He's invisible as well.
Because you feel it coming outside of your body, so I can see
the invisible joy
connection
monster brought it in. He came in and rush of joy from the joy monster as he flies by. How do you know it wasn't him?
It kind of was, I'm saying that this
I love it. It kind of was.
Kind of was, I'm like, are we on the same page?
It's true. Yeah, well, I guess, yeah. So we have a joy monster. All right. There is a joy monster, and he gave you joy.
Yeah.
And we have to medicate, not medicate. Sorry. It sounds a little similar there.
Yeah, meditate.
I mean, you can medicate, but, within reason, don't smoke weed all day, every day, So you were filled with joy from the joy monster or the being. And then you were afraid to talk about it, and you did talk about it. And you haven't experienced any or talked to anybody else that has that same joy? That experience, same experience, you said?
Yeah, so it's a minority, but I find that people who experience with psychedelics, for example,
medicated, back to the medication.
It is a kind of medication where they do either ayahuasca or other types of psychedelics. I know that there are also therapists who are using these types of medication, including ketamine focused psychotherapy.
Do you have their number?
Because
joking, good grief. Maybe
after.
Thanks. So there's not very many people that you've connected with that have that same experience. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that the joy monster or whatever it is not bringing joy to the world?
Because it's up to you to find it, it's up to you to do the work, and most people are not ready to commit to the self-care practices.
So you have to work to find it.
You
does he want to be found?
Ironically, I think he does. It does, because I don't like to call it he or she. I don't think there's gender in God. I think it's energy.
Gotcha.
It's like this powerful energy. But anyways, these people who have done these type of psychedelics, which I have never done, just to clarify this, but they have experienced the same feeling I had through meditation, through this altered state of consciousness.
Interesting.
So they were able to experience this feeling of love and like overwhelming, like a fountain of love flowing out of you that you do for no reason, like literally a fountain of love. You start crying with joy. It is the most blissful experience I've ever experienced. And when a lot of time passes that I don't experience this, I start wondering, like, when is it going to happen again? Like,
oh no, you're getting addicted to the joy monster.
I'm addicted to the joy monster now.
You know? I love it. Oh man, well, that joy is addicting, that's for sure. I try to find it wherever I can. You know, that's my goal in life, to spread it and find it wherever I can. 100%. Well, this is great. This has been a lot of fun. I wanted to get back into the science thing. One last question. We'll close it out with this last question. The science and spirituality, there's a big difference there. Science has not verified any of this. So how do we correlate the two? We have science, which tells us there's no invisible people, no joy monster. It all comes from within us. We can find the answers to these things using science and medical equipment and stuff. So where does science fit into the spirituality part? How do you correlate the two? How do you fit them in together?
Yeah, see, I have a totally different perspective on that, and I don't see them as separate. I see them as the same. We're talking about the same thing. It's just that, so science hasn't been able to encompass and understand everything, how the universe works. In fact, even I'm a big fan of like astronomy. And they all have these questions of how the universe was created, how long ago, how big is it, and all these questions. So we can see that science is continuously evolving, and there are theories that before learning. So we're learning about the universe, about ourselves, about our bodies, about our mind. So just because we don't have an explanation for everything doesn't mean that it does not exist, because what we couldn't explain a few years ago, they had all types of superstitions, for example, but now there's a scientific explanation for it. So in my head, one day, I think that we would be able to explain more things. It's just we haven't gotten there yet.
Gotcha. Yeah. For sure.
But it doesn't
science is slowly moving towards figuring things out. We not in our lifetime. We'll probably never figure out why or how we all got here. For sure. But I mean, that's disappointing. I can deal with it though. As long as we find alien life in my lifetime, I'm okay. But it all goes back to that same thing, that self-care and education, and that I perfect. We need more of that. 100% self-care education. Get yourself some. Find an expert. Man, what's the word I'm looking for? Not an expert. Oh my goodness, words are escaping my mouth. Anyways, wow. Therapist, holy cow, there's the word. A therapist, if you need one, definitely seek professional assistance. There's the words. So yeah, if you're dealing with any of those issues, definitely seek professional help. Thank you, Grace. This has been a blast. Go ahead. I want you to close it out with where can we find your stuff and any last words you got?
Yeah, so thank you, Michael. I really had fun having this conversation with you. If people got curious about what I do, they can visit my website, gracebeing.com. Or my Instagram, grace.being. And if you have any questions, shoot them out at me. I would be more than happy to answer you. And I want people to be curious about themselves and who they are, and not to be scared to ask questions and go a bit deeper to explore who they really are and where they come from.
Great advice. Absolutely. Ask questions. Never stop learning. Thank you so much, Grace. This has been a blast. We'll keep in touch.
Thanks. Ciao, Michael.
That's all the show there is for you today. Thanks for listening. As always, you can find me at the Bible Says What YouTube and Facebook pages. You can also find clips of the show on TikTok under BSW the Podcast. If you like what you heard and want to help keep the recording light on, simply go to patreon.com/BSW the Podcast and sign up to be a supporter of the show. Your episodic tithes of $1 or more will get you early access to each episode by at least 3 days, stickers, shirts, and shoutouts. That's patreon.com/BSW the Podcast. For the latest events, BSW swag, including signed copies of The Bible Says What the book, head on over to the show's ever-evolving webpage at thebiblesayswhat.com. And no matter which platform you use to listen to your podcasts, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on the next episode. Until then, would you kindly pick up your Bibles and read them? Next time on The Bible Says What? If you rebel against him. I'm a dad. My kids rebel against me every day. You know,
Yeah.
It's a thing. You know, and eventually they'll get older and they'll realize this, and I'm okay with that. So why is God not okay with that? Why does he get so angry?
I don't know that he gets so angry.
No, but we just talked about him drowning the whole planet.
Yeah, I understand.
He
that.
wasn't happy when he did that.
No, he
Anyways.
wasn't happy. It said he regretted that he had ever made man.
Oh man, that's a whole sentence right there. Why does
Yeah.
God regret? How can God regret? That just doesn't even seem possible.